We're here for the next panel, Beyond Crypto, the case for blockchain in financial services. So we're lucky, I think, to have, now we're up to 5 great panelists, all coming at this from a different angle. And if we want to start down at the end, you want to just give a quick bio so the audience knows who you are.
Sure. So my name is Chris Moan. That's all right, I don't think I need it. I got involved in blockchain and cryptocurrency as a CEO of an artificial intelligence technology company utilizing the blockchain. And I have a side job at a large financial institution where I had 25 years experience in the field in law and compliance, and that's what I do to occupy my time during the day.
So my name is Porter, and I work for Boston Consulting Group, and I've been in crypto for a little bit about a year and a couple months now, working on fully decentralized applications. And most recently, I've been working with the De Beers diamond company, start tracking the full provenance of diamonds to try to prevent the sale of blood diamonds and also kind of give trust to this this world. So currently I'm fully focused on Ethereum and other public blockchains, and so I'd love to talk to you guys about it during this this conference. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Abder Bukur, so I'm the Chief Architect at Farmers Insurance, which is just here in the Valley. So what I would like to share today about 3 things that we are doing at Farmers, mostly from the innovation perspective. One of them is we created insurance consortium, blockchain consortium, with the other insurance company. They are up to 20, and they will share what the use cases we did, and it is in production, so it's not just theory. The other one with our parent company, which is Zurich, also they created another B3I, which stands for Blockchain Insurance Industry Initiative, mostly in Europe, and also they have use cases and they are developing that. Last but not least, I sit also on Gartner Blockchain Steering Committee for Financial Services. Next month, March 15, Farmers Insurance, we are hosting this event, and most of the participants, they are from financial services.
Hear me?
Yep.
I'm Sherry Kaiserman. I had a 28-year career on Wall Street. 18 of the last years was spent at Wedbush, where I was head of equities and spearheaded the first Wall Street written report on Wall Street for on the topic of Bitcoin and blockchain in 2013. So I've been involved with it since then. And I just left Wedbush to co-found a company called Macola. And we have a 3-prong approach to helping the ecosystem grow. An investment fund, an advisory group that focuses on an accelerator model for our portfolio companies, as well as trying to educate and corporate America and governments in understanding what blockchain is and helping them conceive ideas as to how to use it, and also be able to help them with designing it and growing it, et cetera. The third arm is something we learned back from the internet.com days, where companies run out of talent long before they run out of money. So we are focusing on a blockchain talent placement module, and that's that.
Hi everyone, my name is Nino Sarwono. I'm part of a company called American Funds. Specifically within American Funds, we have a group called Emerging Technology that is looking into all of the emerging technology, including blockchain. In terms of our blockchain journey, we actually started looking at blockchain since 2015. I'm here to share not only the things that we're experiencing right now in terms of getting that into production, as well as all the challenges internally as well as externally on some of the use cases in financial services.
Okay, terrific. And I'm Luke Kerner. I'm a VC with CryptoOracle, and we invest in crypto-related companies that are going to be tokenizing from ideas on a napkin up to and including the ICO. And I'm also a former Bruin, so it's great to be back here at my alma mater. So Nino, we'll start with you. So we've been talking, multiple people have talked about, what's real and what's the dream. What's real today? What's happened in American Funds that you're actually using blockchain or testing blockchain for?
Yeah, so in terms of what we're looking at, there's about 17 or 18 specifically use cases that we're looking at for our business. So we're an investment management firm. We basically build mutual funds. So there's, when you think about our business, you can kind of break it down into 2 different parts. One is on the investment management side, which we interact with capital market partners, custodian banks, exchange venues, confirmation service providers, data providers, all of those things, right? But on the other side of the business, basically we distribute our funds. So our model is a B2B, so we sell through our financial services and broker dealers. When you think about the use cases across, there's multiple potential for our business, ranging from the very incremental in terms of reducing frictions of existing business processes to completely new business model that we believe could be a revenue generating for us. Specifically, the one that we've been focusing on is really on the U.S. equity settlements. Essentially, when you think about equity trading today, it takes about 3 days to settle. This is a very, very hard problems to solve, but we're working on that with a couple of fintech firms in New York, and that's one of the use cases. The other use case that we're looking at is around sourcing reference data. So if you imagine when you buy and sell equities, you need to have the right pricing information, you need to have the right all of financial foundational data information. The discrepancies in the data could be a very monumental in terms of the impact to the transaction. So we're looking at that as well. So those are the two, but I can share more in terms of what others that we're kind of monitoring over the last 16 months, 18 months or so.
And Sherry, obviously, you said now that you're at a new company, but after many years on Wall Street. So what are you seeing from when you were at Wall Street and now that you're looking to actually fund companies?
Well, it's interesting because being at Wedbush and being one of the first banks and financial services firms in general to start looking at the space, trying to figure out how do we utilize this, how do we monetize it, how do we get involved, and the only thing that we were really able to do, because FINRA was all over us on anything, when we were
FINRA
quoted
being
in the press.
The self-regulating body for the
for the
finance
securities industry. Anytime we were mentioned in the press, they're like, what are you doing with Bitcoin? We'd have to have a massive conference call with them. So what we did was we were the first Wall Street firm to publish on it. We set up a Coinbase account to accept Bitcoin as payment for the research so that we could touch and feel it and understand that back in 2014.
Did anybody actually use it?
We did. Yeah, it was really kind of cool because people who weren't normal customers of ours and individuals in Russia and all over the world, we got payments in Bitcoin for our research product. And then we invested in Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin, et cetera, on our own, and then in some companies. But that was really all that we were able to do. We could not do any activities that associated customers with the cryptocurrency. So Wedbush, being not a bulge bracket firm or a very large firm, did not have the budget to basically pioneer the technology aspect and research of it. And so we did what we could, and that's kind of why I left, because it was just very boring. And I couldn't pull the straight. It was just, it was me mainly focusing on it and other people making the decisions. So now I'm the decision maker.
Now, Abdur, I know you're doing some interesting things. You want to kind of focus on what you think is the most interesting project that the company's up to?
Sure. So in the insurance space, many innovations started back in 2017, either from insurtech level, but also from Fortune 500 companies. So one of the pitfalls you might face in blockchain is the governance. Who's going to govern the blockchain platform? Luckily, in the insurance, there is a non-profit organization for property casualty insurance, not healthcare insurance. That's called the Institute. So 70%, 80% of the insurance company in the US, they are part of this Institute group. So we started back at the beginning of 2017 just to brainstorm what could the insurance company share and create a blockchain platform. So we come up with about 18 use cases. And then 4 of those use cases, they became a pilot. And now one of them has been December 2017. It is in production. So as you know, insurance, when there is a claim, many insurance companies, they are part of that claims. So at the end of the day, we need to collaborate. We need to be part of a consortium. So the blockchain that now it is Just press release. If you just Google insurance news, you will see press release was last Thursday, February 15, where it's become official that there is a creation of a risk block alliance consortium with 18 insurance members of it.
And
that's
what's the technology that you're using?
Yeah, so we are using a consensus platform. That's what we selected so far. But we are open to different ideas as well, yeah.
And that's a private blockchain.
That's private blockchain for now, yeah, exactly.
Okay, terrific, thanks. And Rick, you were talking about the work that you're doing with De Beers. I mean, that's obviously fascinating.
Yeah, so Boston Consulting Group's digital venture, we have about 15 to 20 developers solely focused on developing some sort of blockchain technology. And I've got about 12 of those developers focused on my venture in particular, which is De Beers. And the goal is, of course, to have fully decentralized diamond trading company, right? And that includes on the public blockchain with complete data privacy. So obviously a lot of you are thinking zero knowledge proofs and things like that, but there's a lot of other options out there. I don't want to really like say it's homomorphic encryption, but we have different types of hardware versions of that. And so, you know, the Intel ARM processors and AMD, they're doing a lot of work right now to create these type of technology that performs calculations in complete cipher or these enclaves. So right now we have a team who are solely focused on developing this complete decentralized way of doing data transfer and data validation while maintaining its privacy. So if you think about it, if a supply chain, a diamond's leaving the mine, possibly in Botswana or in South Africa, what are all the different actors that diamond might have to go through? What are all the different actions that it might observe? And what are all the different types of validation that must take place? And the big question is how do you confirm that this diamond that you're holding in your hand is actually this hash on the blockchain? So we've come up with all these different techniques, and obviously you're all thinking data science, which is accurate, and some sort of hardware of scanning these diamonds. But it's been a completely interesting and diverse team, a very global team. I would say we have all 12 members might actually come from a different country. I haven't thought about it too much, but it might be true. So we have a very diverse group that have come together to build hardware, software, and crypto techniques to kind of complete the solution. And we expect to have a private or beta release sometime in the next 2 to 3 months with a public chain release probably in the next 6 months. And that's being conservative.
And is De Beers concerned? I mean, obviously one of the great things about the blockchain and and the different technologies we have now is the enablement of decentralization. Right. And De Beers is to some degree a monopoly. And so those are the guys who you would think would be least concerned or least interested in decentralization because they're getting, taking massive profits from sitting in there in the middle.
Kind of. The government has already stepped into De Beers multiple times throughout their supply chain. And it's a 270-day process, let's imagine, right? And we believe that from the time the diamond leaves the mine to it hits the retailer, we could possibly cut that number in a third through creating a trust throughout these different actors. Because if you think about it, a diamond, a 10-carat diamond, which is pretty rare and obviously extremely expensive, will travel the world being evaluated, being cut, and being polished. So there are a lot of people who are touching this diamond. There's a lot of people who could perform some sort of nefarious act on it or modify it or change it in some way. So it's really just about trustless situation, which blockchain is about. So all these different actors would be operating these nodes and they would be creating a trusted chain from the start to finish.
Terrific. Chris, you want to talk about what the most interesting thing going on in blockchain with Delaware Trust?
Sure. So there's two, in a large financial services institution or organization, there are basically two components. You have your institutional clients and then you have your individual clients, wealthy families. On the institutional side, what we're seeing is there's a race going on, and I'd say my own personal observation, it's out of fear. If you think about the application of a distributed ledger to securities processing, payments, settlement, as we said earlier, there's in every large organization, they have to have the ability to see around corners. They want to be a first mover. So what you're seeing right now is a lot of IP acquisition. So most of the large firms will have significant patents that they'll be acquiring privately and putting away because they're preparing themselves. But that's a big change because their internal audit teams need to get
comfortable with a whole new level of risk. So there's a lot happening there, and I think there's a window of about 24 months where there's got to be a large-scale commercial application, a massive impact for this to start to really take hold. On the private side, you have wealthy individuals, wealthy clients that'll come to us and they'll say, we either just had a large liquidity event, we sold our company, we inherited some money, we have 10 or 50 or $100 million, and we're scared. We don't know what to do. So traditionally, we've helped them by outlining a multi-generational plan and helping them achieve their goals for that money. To give you a real-life example of what this will hit close to home, and actually the individual might be in the room, and I apologize if they are, but I'll keep it confidential because we have to. But husband and wife, very young couple, came into our office, said they had a position in Bitcoin, and they just got married. She was smart enough to say, come on, we're going down to meet with some professionals. He really didn't care. I got called into the meeting because I'm in a senior role, but I got called in because I was the only one in the firm who knew what it was. Nobody else really knew what Bitcoin was. So I asked, how can we help you? She said, we just got married. He said he has some money for some investments he made a long time ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I'm really not sure how much it was. And I looked at him and I said, where is it? And he pulled out a disk and showed it to me, memory stick. It's all here. And how much? And he goes, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 million, something like that. It moves around a little bit. And she looked at him and shook her head and said, you see, I told you we needed help. We have to have a plan. We need a trust. We need a will. We need a plan for how to do this, and we need to convert it into money. And I said, well, let me just ask a question. If something happened to him today, where is it? She had no idea. How do you access it? I don't know. Well, where does he keep that disk? Most of the time in his pocket. So that's a real life issue, though. Those are people who have significant wealth, and it's intangible at that point. And our role was simply to make it tangible. And we're not going to run to market and sell everything and try to put it into an instrument, but we're going to put a plan in place where at least now they have the ability to access it, safeguarded properly. We've had people come in with a piece of paper. Here's my codes. This is what I have and this is what I need to do. But once you get to a certain level of wealth, you need to speak with a firm that's equipped to handle it. And that's where firms are scrambling because they need to get up to speed and learn. I mean, one of our lead economists got out in front of it like you did, but it's because she was in Israel and she walked by a Bitcoin ATM and stood there and stared at it for half an hour and said, what am I looking at? I can't believe this. And that sparked her interest in learning. So there's a lot happening both on the institutional side and with our private clients as well.
Yeah,
it's all exciting.
The Bitcoin ATM in Israel, the line's now around the block. I was there last month. And it's crazy because the biggest problem with it is they have to shut the store where the Bitcoin ATM is every 90 minutes because the machine fills up with cash. And they need to pull it out and make room for the new cash coming in to buy Bitcoin. So we've talked about kind of where we are in terms of some of the interesting things. And I know we're at the very, very beginning of this for everybody. But with remaining time, let's talk about where we're going. You talk about where you think what technologies now that your firm is thinking about, that you're thinking about, that are kind of where Bitcoin, where the blockchain is going.
Yeah, so you're asking about where it's going to go from here on. From our perspective, I mean, we're dealing with real world challenges. I mean, this is very hard when you think about moving, centralized services that've been there for the longest time. How do you change their mind, right? So we're talking about some of our custodians, partners, trading venues, brokers, dealers, and this is the hottest part, right? Internally within Capital, one of the big challenges is really around education. So how do you educate people and make them really comfortable with a concept that is very, very complex? I mean, let alone explaining what a database is. Now we have to explain database plus, right? So how do you overcome that? So there's the internal challenges in terms of education. There's challenges on the technology side as well. There's challenges in terms of getting the right individual in a common, sort of like getting into the one common goal. There's challenges in terms of applying blockchain in existing business process, because when you think about what the use case that Rick brought up, I mean, really that's applying blockchain in existing business process, and that's very hard because you have to make sure that every role in the business process agree that they need to now get some of their capabilities automated in the blockchain, right? So that is very, very hard. So from our standpoint, in terms of the next 12 months, is really taking a more active leadership role. So from a buy-side firm perspective, we really want to be active, because right now a lot of the discussion in the financial services in the capital market is really pretty much driven by the custodian and by the sell side. We want the buy-side firm. We want to be more active in driving that discussion, and to that end, one of the things that we're doing is really trying to find other large buy-side firms like Capital Group, so that we can work together and find those common pain points and use our influence together to really put together a much more compelling business use cases that ultimately will benefit all of our investors. So from our standpoint, it's really about educating. It's about getting the right other buy-side firm to agree on common use cases. And really, in 2018, we want to get something done.
And Sherry, now that you're on the investing side, what are the technologies that you're most excited about on the blockchain?
So we are, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Hello? We're a first-time fund.
You want to take the microphone? There you go.
Thanks. We're a first-time fund, and we want to be able to have some great performance and rather quickly. And so what we see as the best opportunities on a near-term basis are the picks and shovels, the building, the enablers of this ecosystem to grow. And so whatever kinds of technologies or services that can enable existing companies with existing businesses to, or even new blockchain models to be able to grow and adopt and utilize the technology. Those are the things that we are focused on, as well as amazing management teams managing and growing disruptive new business models. But primarily, we're finding more attractive kinds of things that are the enablers. And I think there's going to be a lot of M&A. I think and that's part of what we're facilitating is teaching the existing companies who are the partners to work with, how can they get a jump start on utilizing the technology or building something internally. And so that's really what we're focused on. I think from where are we going, I think it's going to be a very interesting year for Bitcoin, because I think there's a lot of right now it's not really becoming what it was meant to be, and I think some of the technologies that are on the horizon that could come out as early as this year will transform it to be the faster, cheaper network, payment network, and also you can write smart contracts on the Bitcoin network currently, just like you do with Ethereum. Ethereum is just much easier to code in and get the smart contract done. There's new technologies that are going to transform the Bitcoin network to be able to write easy smart contracts for it. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm a fan of Rootstock.
Rootstock, RSK.
So Abdur, you want to talk about, from a technical standpoint, obviously also what you guys are, I assume, looking at are potentially a lot of high volume transactions, and so kind of what technologies that you're looking at you think might be able to handle that?
So like I mentioned early, back in 2017, there were about like 50 plus insurance carrier. They were part of the brainstorming innovation. When we became serious about the use cases, they were only 18, they sign up. So we are only 18 members at this time. So we still need to, the other maybe they decided to just wait and see what was going to happen. So we have tangibly business value for the use cases. Some of them, they lower the cost for the transactions, mostly for claims, for subrogations, and also improve the flow of the money between participants in the claims. So the use cases that we have right now, there is some parametric insurance for the contract, smart contract. It is in the development right now, plus subrogation, plus the other one, which is the first notice of loss. The one which is in production, which is much easy, just like sharing the data, which is proof of insurance. So there is a blockchain now. It's already in production for all the members. Anyone claim that has an insurance, that blockchain can provide if that insurance exists or doesn't exist. The other one, we are looking to leverage what we are doing here in the US with other insurance company in Europe. Their use cases is reinsurance. So any insurance company, if you see there is, they always also buy reinsurance in case if there is a tragedy, there is always some threshold. So the reinsurance use case is very strong use case because that every insurance company, when they want to buy reinsurance, any other big carrier, they can provide that. So that's the two initiatives we are doing right now.
Cool. And Rick, and I know you guys are looking at all kinds of technologies for your project and across BCG and BCG.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of subjects here. I mean, when we think about technology, one of the big things we think about is scalability. What are the next gen blockchains? What kind of proofs? Proof of stake, obviously, but how are they going to get that out? Well, when will the EOS release be? When will the Definity release be? Will we be able to leverage these types of smart contracts, which will be built using WASM or built on top of WASM? And what kind of zero knowledge proof technology will be moving forward? Like, are we going to see Socrates become more popular and watch that technology become flushed out? Will somebody create actual software versions of homomorphic encryption? And also culture and teams. Right now, as I was saying, we have team members from all over the world, and most of us spend almost all of our time at night in airplanes and at day in some sort of city, just so we can keep up with all the different team members and the technology that they're putting together. But how do we work decentralized, yet we're so used to being centralized when we work? And there's all these other aspects of what type of hardware will be coming out in the next couple of years to support the technology that we're building, and what kind of programming languages will we be using. I mean, if you look up Baidu, interesting company, right? But if you look at what they're developing in Rust, you might find some very interesting applications for their SGX enclave. So this kind of simplifies developing for these types of technology, but it's unusual that a company like Baidu is actually putting this together. Recruiting practices, we have all these different, at DV what we're doing is we have these dapathons. So last year we had one in August, and we had about 75 people show up, and we were actually able to hire, I believe, like 13 or 14 people out of that event that were not just developers, but product and UX folks that are very focused on blockchain right now. So
it's not really a hackathon, it's a recruiting.
It's a very much a recruiting event. I mean, if you go to any hackathon for any corporation, you're most likely getting recruited. So if you want to work for that company, spruce up, I guess. And
all the different technologies that you were talking about, right? And that's just the tip of the iceberg of everything that's going on. Right. I mean, how does a firm like BCG, how do you even begin to keep up?
We have a lot of contacts. So we do work with Dominic Williams from Definity. We have Henning Diedrich he wrote the book Ethereum. We have Peter Bora, one of a smart contract developer for 3 or 4 years, have developed a lot of public smart contracts. And we've been developing internal blockchain technology and also contributing highly to the community. So we're actually have dedicated developers who are going out there, going through the Ethereum bug list, going through the EOS bug list, and trying to apply fixes and trying to submit their own patches. So it's becoming very interesting as we move forward. But it's definitely how do we build an interesting team. And if anyone is curious, most of the time we just hire a cryptographer and teach them blockchain, and they should already be able to connect the dots within the first week. So.
Cool. And Chris, what are the new technologies that Delaware Trust is kind of looking at? Because obviously you guys are going to have a lot of scaling issues as well.
Yeah, we will. And it's hard to follow Rick because he's obviously very smart and he's sitting in the Guns N' Roses seat. So, on the institutional side, there is, but he brought up a good point, proof of stake, not proof of concept, or proof of work. I think that's going to be the biggest obstacle that any present or evolving blockchain technology is going to have to overcome within the the institutions themselves, because they operate under a traditional model, as you said earlier, a 3-day settlement, and you have, my prior firm, a third of the world's wealth either slept at or passed through the organization every night. So if you think about a trust-based system and the amount of transaction that's involved, we're either going to get it right or we're not. And I think personally that we have about a 24-month window to see a large commercial application to be able to provide that scale to handle that. Or we're going to see an evolution of blockchain the way it exists right now. It's going to disrupt and change and move, and we're going to be talking about implementing a new technology. On the individual side, I'm paying attention to things and how they're slowly coming into the market. You have things like Coinbase Commerce, right? The eBay or PayPal, rather, of the crypto world. That's coming online. And then you have a firm that I just saw, I wrote the name down, obviously not a promotion because I just learned of them, Set Protocol. They're looking at building these smart contracts that are essentially baskets of cryptocurrencies. So you can invest in something like you can an index fund or an exchange-traded fund, like a Dow Jones Industrial Average, but in cryptocurrency. So I think you're going to see evolution like that on the individual investor side as well. It's very exciting, but there's a huge education component that we have to go over, a gap that we've got to fill. So I think a large part of our firms and all firms on Wall Street are going to be investing in that education. They're going to be distributing white papers, all designed to educate the individual investor and to create that trust in an emerging technology.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So we have time for one question, and when you ask the question, it's got to be, obviously, as I said before, it's got to be something blockchain related. And I want you to also say which of the panelists you would like to answer the question, because we have time for one question and one of our panelists to answer that question. So who would like, anybody have a question? There you go.
How would you...
And can you state who you are and where you're coming from as well?
My name is Anthony. I go to law school here at UCLA. I work for Stock Cross Financial Services in Beverly Hills. I'm just curious, I guess this would be towards Delaware Trust Capital Group. How do you plan on solving custody issues that relate to cryptocurrencies? You're holding them in account for clients.
You want to start with that?
Just to be clear, that we're not buying or selling cryptocurrencies on behalf of our individual or institutional clients. So I can't really say. I have my personal point of view, but it's not really Capital Group point of view. I think it's definitely an evolving topic. I don't know if I'm really the expert on answering that question, to be honest with you. But it's definitely something that, when you think about the whole ICO and think about the whole cryptocurrencies and how you get from the point where now it's, at sort of like at the early adoption phase, and how do you get that to the more of an institutional, you got a lot of institutional investors now are getting into that space. Obviously that question needs to be answered. Unfortunately, I'm not the lawyer in the room, and I'm going to actually rely on you to answer your own question.
Chris, you have anything to add to that?
I think that that was a good question, and thank you for coming. I think the best way to answer it is, my own personal view is, as I said earlier, we have a 24-month window. And unless somebody steps in with a massively disruptive technology that's going to create that trust among all of the existing people that are handling the current system, because if you think of the custody, and it's a great question, the custody world, there is a level of trust on a private ledger. When you have a distributed ledger, it seems simple, but just think of all of the individual law and compliance departments at all of the individual firms, not just the custodian, but the clearing firms. Everybody that's involved in that ecosystem, they're all going to have to get comfortable with it. They're going to have to rewrite all their internal controls and processes. And the very existence of their organization is going to be dependent upon getting this right. I just think there's too much out there, and we have a limited window of time in which to hit it, or something else is going to come along.
Yeah, maybe I'll share one point of view. I mean, you think about the cryptocurrency, it's just a different asset class. So, and when you think about it from that perspective, existing compliance rule, existing regulation will still have to apply. I think the noise right now that is happening is, SEC, obviously you probably heard about when celebrities, getting involved in promoting ICOs. Those are the noise that the regulation, in fact, probably is needed for the industry to strive. But when you think about it from, it's just another asset class, then really all of the other existing rules will still apply. Now, the idea of using smart contract to sort of like codify those regulation and bring the automation, that is an interesting topic that maybe that's a separate discussion point.
Okay, terrific. And before we go, Veronica, did you want to say something?
Thanks. Hey, before everyone leaves, we just have a couple things that we want to say. First, thank you again to all our panelists, everyone here, as well as everyone who's participated today. Thank you for coming. Really quick, I just want to acknowledge the UCLA Blockchain Lab and the Los Angeles Blockchain Lab who came together to put this event on. It's actually...
thank you, UCLA Blockchain Lab.
And I really want to acknowledge both Adam Spar, Alex Nascimento, Heidi Pease, Eric Chung, Lauren Glasses, and David McFadden. Am I missing anyone? That's the core team who really came to bring this together. So if you see any of us, please come say hello. We're having a Women in Blockchain lunch. We have 30 lunches. So if you RSVP to the meetup, come on over. If you didn't, and we have extra lunches, come on over. If you're a woman, just come on over anyway. At least say hi before you, if there isn't an extra box lunch, I'm sorry, we're constrained a little bit with finances, but if there is an extra box lunch, come say hello, meet the other women. You know, there's a statistics out there that's about 1 to 5% of all cryptocurrency investments are women, the rest are men. So come on over, let's talk about blockchain, let's get you involved. Also, we're announcing, it's right outside. We're taking over 2 picnic tables. And so it's really just, we're going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. There's an event coming up at UC Irvine, a Women in Blockchain conference. We're launching the Women in Blockchain vertical out of the LA and UCLA blockchain labs. So again, come learn more about it right outside at the picnic tables. And then just one more quick announcement from Adam. Thank you.
Yes, so next, on the topic of lunch, use whatever Maps app you prefer, but if you search Ackerman, that student union is the closest place. There are all sorts of restaurants in there. It's about 0.2 miles away. And lastly, we'll be resuming programming at 1:30 p.m. on schedule with Nick and Hunter from MetaX, and they'll be discussing Hyperledger. Thank you.
All right, cool.